Node API team meeting for June 11th, 2021. We'll follow our standard approach of going through the issues we've tagged for milestone 11. Before we do that, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share? Sounds like not, so let's move on. I will share my screen here with that list. So the first one is to look at any new stale issues. Kevin, you'd added this one, it looks like. Did we?
Yeah, we talked about that one last week. I think AgendaCast
yeah,
was going to do.
I'm going to, let's say, title down, checking down the crashing issue first, and then get back to this.
Okay, so I guess that one we'll just leave on. We'll see you next week where we're at with it. Okay. Tracking issues for modules notice supported. I don't think I've seen anything new on that front. Anything anybody wants to bring up on that one? The debug testing, I know I haven't done anything on, and so we're on to issues. So are there any issues that people want to call out and have us discuss this week?
I have submitted a PR in Node Core to testing the GC crashes. We previously checking them. The PR number is 389 and 70.
This one, right?
Yeah, we can stably testing the garbage collection crash with this test, and we can verify that your recent PR have fixed the issue with the tests.
Right, just where?
It's right here.
Right here. Okay, right. So this is where you can call this method.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
It's very tricky to get the engine running like what you expect, especially on the GC part. So I just let's say directly coding into the weak callback, since the API contracts of the weak callback is that the embedder has the responsibility to reset the persistent handle, so so this test will work fine as we expected.
Okay. So basically you're creating.
Yeah, we are creating those a bunch of environment setups with these tests. So then we are read the print cast to the objective value back to what we have internally.
Right. Okay. So that's interesting. The one question I had was around the use of the, like, it adds a new like a new test framework, right?
Yeah, we the test framework is already there, but we are adding a new production headers for Gtest. It's a very simple line of friend declaration. It's in the bottom of the file.
Okay, so just a second. So basically, because that
Gtest
was around...
is already existing in Node Core repo. It's in test. And no, it's not in depth. It's in test/sys test.
Right. Okay. Test.
Sys test. In the CC test. CC test.
Oh, CC test. Okay. Right. Sorry.
Right.
Test.
No, test and CC test.
Right. CC test. Okay. G test. Okay. Right.
There you go.
So we already have things. I was just wondering, like, if it's a new license, do we need to add that new license to the main? but it already exists, it sounds like.
But we are distributing the G-test production headers, but that's what we don't have previously. We previously don't distribute G-test files with our core binary, right? So with the G-test underscore production, we are going to distribute the file content with our binary. So I've just added a license. But if you that might be not maybe not mandatory, I think.
So okay, so that was my main thing, was like, and do we use the G test in any of our other regular tests, or?
I didn't find any other case.
Okay.
But the G-test production header is very simple and intuitive to review. It's very simple. I can see it's few lines, 1 or 3 lines in the production header.
Right. Okay. I guess I was just like, so this source G test, so this under source, so why do we need to have the G test in the source code?
We have to declare the friendship of the class so that we can access the private members of the internal classes in the test file, so that we don't have to expose them as public access.
Okay. So I think like there is, I guess that goes back to my question, is we probably then need to, like if we look in, like in the node license, it has to have a copy of all the licenses of stuff we ship, right?
So maybe we can merge these license files.
This seems to already be here.
Okay. So but
I think you'd need to add in here a couple lines in there.
Yeah.
And this basically can redistribute it.
They are quite similar. We are redistributing the binaries, right?
Right. Binary form.
This is a BSD3 clause, isn't it?
I'm not sure, but it seems very loosey, so not very restrictive one.
Yeah, usually when it has like 3 bullet points like that, it's usually BSD3 clause.
Let's just take a quick look. BSD.
Yeah, looks quite similar.
Okay. So I think we probably at least need a line entered, like an additional line here that would say the test that that points to the new places we put it. Yeah.
New location to source G test, right?
Yeah. Okay. So that's good. Because I was just wondering, like, you know, do we really need a new test framework if it's pulling in a new set of licenses and stuff?
This is not a new test framework in our source code.
Okay, right. So, and does it, like, it's not needed when we're building the release binaries, right?
It's only the only active code in the file is that is the friend declaration, so it doesn't generate any actual code in our binary, right? I'm not aware of any friend declaration will generate any actual machine code in our binary.
Right, I see what you're saying. So basically it's there. However, when you compile the code, so let's see, what are the, where's an example of the,
You might just see
like that?
source and I write. That's the example.
Okay,
And
so that, okay, go ahead, sorry.
I'm extracted the declaration of our internal structure from the CC file to the header file so that we can include them in our tests, and you can check out it to see how we use them. It's JS native API v8.h.
.h, okay, yeah, let's.
Yeah, here we
Right,
go.
so that includes that,
That's it.
and then
We friendship it in the reference structure, reference class in the bottom of the file.
right, so this.
This the declaration may be better placed into JS native API v8 internal.h, because v8.h is kind of stuff that can be used outside of Node, right? And we don't want to force everybody who's using v8 based Node API outside of Node to also have gtest. So
Right.
The hash include may be better placed in a JS native API v8 internal.h.
Sounds reasonable. I can do it.
Okay.
Want me to comment that on here right now?
Sure.
That was, where was that?
The hash include.
Here, right, okay.
Yeah.
Oops, no. And that was in, what was it again?
JS native
This
API.
one, okay, right, okay, yeah, right here.
Yeah, the internals, yeah.
Right. Okay, so right, so I guess my other question is like this, why is this like whole thing, is this like the new?
We previously writing the declarations with the implementations whole in the CC file. We don't forward declare them in the header file, so we have to extract the declaration from the CC file to the header file, so that we can include those declarations in the CC test.
But like this piece, like, does that now expose it more than we would want it to be?
Actually, we don't distribute the va.h file in our header bundles, right? We only distribute a limited set of headers in source to end users. So this file will not be distributed to, like say.
Oh yeah, this is the V8 version. Yeah, okay, right.
Yeah.
Right, that's, I was just, okay, so that's not the public one. So that's, yeah, okay.
So does it, the fact that it's not in an anonymous namespace, does this add symbols to the node binary which are like visible using like NM, you know?
Yeah, but we have we have many cases where implementations were in the namespace of VA info, but not in anonymous. Let's say the VA, the base class of the node env, node env is in the VA info namespace, but since it's declared in the JS native API V8. Let me check.
Yeah, I don't remember if we build with visibility equals hidden or not, because we do have these macros like a node or an API external, I think, which explicitly declare a visibility of default so that it can be used from other shared libraries. But I don't remember if we use visibility hidden in our flags, because I remember we had an effort to reduce the number of symbols that the binary exposes.
I believe the flag is being disabled since we have to export all of the V8 symbols to add-ons.
Yeah, Node does export a lot of things.
Yeah, right.
And in fact, there was, so go ahead.
I checked about the JS V8 API, JS native API V8.h. There is like say ref checkers and then NAPI env and many others are already in the V8 import namespace without an nesting anonymous namespace. They are not in anonymous, so they are already exposed in symbols. But since we don't distribute those headers file, users have to using them in a very tricky way.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's no actual changes to this code, but it does move it to that .h file, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay. Well, is this, I'm just trying to understand here. We've got this is a CC file, so a bunch of stuff is removed.
And since we in C++, we have to write implementation and declarations in a very different way. So that's what we have to do. We have no way to structure them in a similar way.
Yeah, so all the implementations have like class name : prepended to the name of the function when it gets implemented.
But this is a bunch of additions back into the same CC file.
Yeah, we have to move them out of the anonymous namespace.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and add the class name : and then
Right, okay.
the forward declaration is in the header file.
Okay, so
okay. It basically tears the class in two, right? It keeps the forward declaration, so it distills the forward declaration, places it into the header file, and then places the leaves the implementation essentially in the same file that it was, but without the anonymous namespace surrounding.
Right.
Yes.
That is going to cause backport pain, but
yeah.
Right, because any changes in that whole area will not backport easily now.
That's right. Well, unless we backport this separation.
Right, that's true. Yeah, no, good point. If we backport that, then we're,
since we can testing those parts, I believe it is worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely in testing that stuff is important. So, okay, so source. Is there any like functional changes here? Like,
I believe no.
Okay, so again, it's basically having to add the namespace, right?
Yeah, we just like say restructure them in a declaration and the implementation.
Okay. Right, so then you're suggesting, Gabriel, we have so something else goes in there. This is all internal, so it's not exported anyway.
I remember that when I first put the declarations in the V8 internals, there are tricky problems that we have. The include order of our header file is that we first include V8 internals and the other files. So put them in the V8 internals cause a lot of ordering issue in the header declarations.
Yeah, I know it's not ideal. And
But
we had
I
to
will
do that.
try. I will try to see if there is other feasible solutions to
Okay.
separate them from the data edge, since it can be used outside the node.
Yeah.
So test CC test. So this is adding another test to CC test, right?
Yeah, we have two tests, one for JS native API v8 and one for node API.cc.
Right, okay.
But
And so
we
this
don't
one,
have many things in the node API.cc since we haven't. But I just set the tests up. We don't have many things in it.
so in terms of like, so I see you're calling like this, I guess you're basically making sure that if we've already called the finalize, then when we call the second one, it's clears and it doesn't do anything, right?
Yes, and it doesn't crash or anything other, like say memory access violations.
Okay, no, that's good. And then test node API, which this one does.
It's very simple to check about the internal field, like say the is actually set up being equal to the node environment.
Okay, so this is one checking whether the node environment is set up correctly or not.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
We can later add, like say, buff finalizers, since we have added changed buffer finalizers in Node API.
It's also good that we're introducing this whole framework of being able to add CC tests to Node API.
Yeah.
Right. So is under test CC test, there's already like test. It's already there, just out of interesting.
We can run this test with make this test, and we can build the this test will be run by default with make test.
Right, okay, so these are already some that we've written for other parts of. Okay, so I guess these other ones, like, so this with the test F, why didn't we need the G test plot like production thing before?
We have to friend the test class to access the private member of the class in our source.
Okay, because this is testing public things versus we're trying to test private things.
I don't believe we need to, like say, promoting the private members to public just for testing. It's not that necessary, right?
Right. Yeah. No, we definitely don't want to do that.
Declaration,
yeah.
Friend declaration might make more sense.
Yeah. No. If these were like, because I know we don't do as much of a, like within Node, we don't necessarily hide things as much, but I think it's better not to have it exposed. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Just understanding. That all makes sense to me. I guess the one thing you were going to look at was making that move. Otherwise, there's any other questions for people? If not, that's good. Any other ones that people want to pull out and discuss?
Yes. So on Node add-on API, there was the most recent issue about the GCC 11 with C++20. And I had to get a bug account created for the GCC Bugzilla. So I have that account created, and now I'm going to create that bug. So my thought though is that we would just update our setup markdown, you know, that README, and just say that there is an incompatibility with GCC 11 and C++20 until we get some feedback from the GCC team. Does that sound reasonable?
That seems reasonable to me. We don't want to forget it though, because at some point, if like GCC becomes stable and it still has a problem, we'd want to take another look, but otherwise sounds reasonable.
Okay. So then after I finish that with the update to the README, then I can close this issue.
I guess that's not the default either, right? Like,
correct. The default is 17.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I figure. We're not, and I don't think the node project to move to 20 anytime soon necessarily.
Yeah. And like somebody put, the 20 support is experimental.
Right.
So it's really, once they say it's stable, we really need to make sure that it works still.
Yeah.
Sounds
good.
That's all that I wanted to call out.
Any other ones that people want to call out or discuss?
I've seen reviews on the maybe type in the add-on API. I found that Michael, you have raised some concerns regarding the existing change.
Yeah, which number was that? That was
the number is 927.
927. Okay.
Yeah.
Pull
it's
request.
API.
That's why. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. No.
We have just removed the red bracket, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I just added a wrap-up document in test.readme.md to describe how we writing tests for different build flavors to have them work with the same source code. And I believe there's nothing special to do, but to ensure that we have to make sure each code in. I'm sorry, but we have to make sure that each code into the node add-on API isn't throwing any JavaScript exceptions in our test, or we have to handle that exceptions. That's the core.
Okay, because I wasn't clear
change.
from this doc yet whether, like, I thought maybe it was just talking about return variables. So I think it could, like, when I read through it, I thought maybe the only place we had to do something was like for the return when we were doing returns.
Yeah, and the one is that we have to take care of return values, and the other is that the whole thing is about the return values of node add-on API functions.
Right. Okay. So basically, I think that might up front in that doc, it may be like the two things we need to do is one, handle return variables or wrap return variables with, like, where was it?
We don't have to wrap values, but we are just going to unwrap in our test code. Wrapping are done in the source, like say napi.h and the napi.inl.h. In the test, we only do unwrapping.
Right. I guess yeah. So I'm still not 100% clear. So let's just dig into that a little bit. Like, so this return, okay, so it's not that you need to do anything with return. It's basically for any call any node
The
API
problem
call.
in the problem here is that we can make node add-on API accept user functions that return maybe of value, so that we don't have to unwrapping ourselves in our code. I can make, but I believe that will not affect API stability. So it's a new construct signature or node API functions, so that we can declare a node add-on API functions with returning maybe value, and we can unwrapping the maybe to back into the JavaScript.
But it's kind of like I'm still a little unclear. Is it like every time we make a call, is it like, so every time we make a call to a node API function that can call JavaScript, we need to wrap it in one of these,
Yes.
these three things?
The core thing is that when we calling into JavaScript, then it might throw in. So we have to handle its return value properly. Anything other functions, like say we get the integer values of a number type that didn't call into JavaScript, then we don't have to handling those bunch of things.
Basically anything that's an API preamble on the core side, it needs this sort of handling. So then if you want to make sure everything that is covered, if you want to make sure everything is covered, then you can just look at all the an API preamble APIs that we have in core, see where they get called from here, and then make sure that those calls use the structure when exceptions are off. So that's how you would check for completeness.
Yeah, I'm more worried about like, hey, I need to go write a new test. And how do we make it clear what's new from this, right? Like, it's basically, you need to use one of those three macros. And like, these are, I guess they're templates, but you need to wrap all the calls in one of those.
Yeah, right. Since we don't have maybe type in, like say, the maybe not enabled when C++ exception is enabled. So we don't have to access to member function or maybe. So we have to declare a global function for that. And it doesn't do nothing when maybe is not declared, maybe is not enabled.
Right, okay, I think I understand a little bit better. I can probably go back and make some more suggestions in terms of what would make it more obvious to me. So
yeah, the PI is quite large, so I am not supposing it will get reviewed so quickly. So I would suggest people to check out if there is any questions, so that we can discuss it in the PR.
sounds good. I mean, there's lots of changes, but in a lot of cases, the changes are just like this, right? Which is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
It's basically wrapping this, which will, instead of being, I guess some of those may be a little bit more complicated, but some of them just add this maybe your value, in which case it's pretty obvious what's going on.
The signature changes, it's all about the wrapping the return values, but there are something in the implementation, like say NAPI IL.h, there will be some wrapping and unwrapping things in it.
Right. Let me see, NAPI. Try to find that dash I now, maybe. There we go. Okay. Right, like there's the extra things, and then
Yeah.
So yeah, like these are fairly straightforward, even though there's a lot of. This will end up being just exactly the same, right? If it's not turned on.
Yes.
And I guess this one, it's the same thing where it ends up.
Yeah, it's quite similar.
I guess they take different parameters, do they? I guess they're a bit different.
It added a new parameter to declare the return type of the maybe value.
Right. Okay.
So that is when the maybe is not enabled, we can return the type default constructor. That is to say, it return an empty of the NumPy boolean.
Right. That one, I wonder. I guess it needs a nappy return, and it does the return too, right? So it's okay.
Yeah, it does. It do the return things, and it will do the throw things if C++ exceptions is enabled.
Right. I wonder, should this have that maybe in the name or not? Because if maybe is disabled, it's still like, I wonder if this should just be named nappy return or throw if failed.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Okay, I'll add that comment. Maybe this should.
So the API is quite large. I'd suggest we can review it offline so that we can we can have the time for other topics if there is none other topics.
That sounds good. But yeah, no, that's so if people can take a look. That addresses the kind of things like the question of what we needed to do. I've got a better understanding, so I can now make some more comments in the issue itself. Okay, any other issues that people want to bring up, discuss? We can maybe just take a quick.
If not, I have another issue in Node add-on API about the const qualifier semantics in Node API, Node add-on API.
Okay.
The PR number is 992.
All right, let me find that one. So you said 992?
992. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So we previously declared the object get property names as a const function, but it does change. It does have side effects especially in the JavaScript side. So I'm not sure the original intention of the const qualifier. So, and they are not const in the meaning of JavaScript side. So I'm not sure people are okay with it.
I think it's more like, are they const in the sense of C++, right?
Yeah, in the C++, there is nothing changing.
Just because if we do change the const declarations, that will cause code to fail to compile, right? That used to compile.
Yes, especially in, like say, in const functions when they are calling node add-on API functions in the const functions, so they are not going to compile.
So it's, I mean, that's like in general C++ code, is there a precedent for like what constants is meant to be const? Variable's value is constant, tells the prevents. So, but we're talking more const functions here, right?
I think the idea here is that the object whose property names you're getting is not changed. So yes, there may be side effects, but those side effects need to be checked using by different means, right? Like you need to check if an exception was thrown. So,
I mean,
it's not the object itself that is getting modified, right?
I mean, in JavaScript, you can do anything in the getter, so the object itself can be changed using getters.
Oh, I
But
see what you mean.
the object pointer, like the object handle in the C++ side will not be changed, but the object itself can be changed.
Right, right. Yeah, okay. So, well, okay, but I think we should restrict this to just looking at the C++ side, because yes, you're right, but I mean, I don't think we should try to attempt to capture like JavaScript concepts, because for the purposes of this function call, right, the object is not changed; it's the same object, right? And so,
yeah.
if there are changes on the JavaScript side, then you know, then that's a JavaScript speciality, right? So
Yeah.
we cannot capture that in C++. So I don't know that we should remove the const here. You know,
I guess
I
even
understand.
like, so go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was going to say like a similar C++ case is if I have a pointer to another object. So yeah, I have an object, I have a pointer to another object. Const should mean that it wouldn't change that pointer to the other object, right?
Yeah.
In the C++, but would it imply that that other object would not have any changes in it? You know, if I did something like I dereferenced that pointer and I did a plus plus because it had an increment function, would that would that be considered breaking the constness?
Yeah, I don't think you would be able to. I think the compiler would track you down all the way to where you're actually trying to make the change.
So even though it's it's a pointer as opposed to a, like, because you're not changing the object itself, you're changing something that it points to.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think the compiler might be smart enough to track you down.
Okay.
But yeah, I think where we break the chain is with the core Node API call, right? Because the core Node API call does not accept the const NAPI value; it accepts a plain old NAPI value, right?
Yep.
So you know, we're putting this const on, but then we're taking it off when we're passing it to Node API, which is interesting that it doesn't complain about that.
Right. Well, that's why I'm wondering whether, like, if C++ doesn't enforce that, you know,
true.
things through an indirect reference, then I would basically say no, we shouldn't worry about it at all, right? Because even at the C++ layer, it doesn't enforce that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. So then I think we can look at it in terms of like, yes, the pointer doesn't change, but that tells you nothing about the thing that it's pointing to.
Like, it's your object is const, but it still points to some external things, but you haven't sort of guaranteed the whole chain of things to be never, like, it doesn't say this does not change anything. It just says it does not change the object itself.
Right.
Reasonable.
Yeah.
I find it very similar to the indirect, the const of pointer and the point of const value.
basically, if we wanted to be absolutely pedantic about this and we wanted to enforce this constantness on the JavaScript side, what we would do, I suspect, is we would freeze the object and then we would unfreeze the object before we return. That would be enforcing constantness. But I mean, that's huge
But
overhead.
you'd also have to say everything the object points to, you would have to do it recursively, because
Right. Yeah.
by
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
token, it could point to another object and change that other
Yep.
object, right?
Yeah. 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 So no, that would be a huge thing. But that's what we would be doing if we wanted to really truly enforce this concept of constantness, even extending it to the JavaScript side. But I don't think we want to do that. So I don't know that we want to do this either.
And if we look at benefit of const, let's just see. Thing being passed in won't be modified, right? Just still seeing, like, as again from like the concept side, is it are we totally breaking the concept or with that?
The node add-on API isn't changing the function of the JavaScript code, so I believe it matches the definition. So we don't have to remove. I believe
Okay.
we don't have to remove.
Okay, I think that's, yeah, and that's the safest in terms of compatibility too. So
yeah.
Okay. Any other ones? How much time is it? Oh, we have a few minutes left. If there's any other ones people want to bring up. If not, we can close out for this week. Thanks for everybody's time, and anybody watching, thanks for watching. We'll see you all next weekend in GitHub.